Have you ever felt watched? Not just the paranoid feeling we all get sometimes, but the absolute certainty that someone's eyes are fixed on you, studying your every move. Maria Alvarez knew that feeling. For 37 nights, she felt it. Every single night, from 11:47 p.m. to exactly 12:13 a.m., someone was watching her from the building across the street. She tried to ignore it. She told herself it was nothing, just her imagination playing tricks after long shifts at the hospital. But the feeling never went away. It grew stronger, more insistent, more real. When she finally gathered the courage to look back, to really see who was watching her, she discovered something that would shatter her sense of safety forever. A man on the 12th floor. Always the same window, always the same time. And when their eyes met through the lens of her camera, he smiled. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came the next morning, when she heard furniture being moved into the apartment right next to hers. The worst part was hearing his voice in the hallway, thanking the movers. The worst part was realizing that the man from the 12th floor had somehow crossed the street and was now separated from her by nothing more than a thin wall. This is the story of what happened next. And I warn you, some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Maria had always been a rational person. As an emergency room nurse, she had to be. Panic didn't save lives, clear thinking did. So when the feeling first started, she dismissed it as exhaustion. 12-hour shifts had a way of making your mind play tricks on you. But by the second week, rationality began to crack. It happened every night like clockwork. She would be in her apartment, winding down after work, maybe making tea or watching something mindless on her laptop. The lights in her living room would be on, the curtains open, because she lived on the 8th floor and had always enjoyed the view of the city. That's when the feeling would crawl up her spine like ice water, making the hair on her arms stand on end. Someone was watching her. At first, she would turn quickly, hoping to catch a glimpse of whoever it was. The building across the street was an older residential tower, maybe 15 stories high, with dozens of windows facing hers. She could never pinpoint where the gaze was coming from. The windows were dark, or if lights were on, she couldn't see clearly enough to make out figures inside. By the third week, Maria started closing her curtains at 11:45 p.m. The feeling would still come, but at least she couldn't see out, couldn't imagine eyes boring into her from the darkness across the street. It helped, marginally. She slept a little better, but curiosity is a persistent demon. On night 37, Maria made a decision. Her colleague Pedro was an amateur photographer who often brought his professional camera to work to show off shots he'd taken around the city. She borrowed it, claiming she wanted to photograph the sunset from her apartment. He was happy to lend it, showing her how to use the powerful zoom lens. That night, Maria set up the camera on a tripod at 11:30 p.m. She kept her curtains closed and her lights off, creating the illusion that she wasn't home. Then she positioned herself behind the camera, lens aimed at the building across the street, and waited. 11:47 p.m. arrived right on schedule, and with it, that familiar sensation of being observed. But this time, Maria didn't feel afraid. She felt empowered. She was going to catch whoever this creep was and report them to the police. She began scanning the building methodically, floor by floor, window by window. Most were dark. Some showed the blue glow of television screens. Others revealed mundane scenes, someone cooking, a couple arguing, an elderly man reading in an armchair. Then she reached the 12th floor, third window from the left. A man stood there, perfectly still, facing her building, facing her window specifically. The room behind him was completely dark, but he stood right at the glass, and in the amplified view of the camera's zoom lens, Maria could see him with startling clarity. He was tall, thin, dressed in what looked like a dark suit. His face was pale, almost luminous in the ambient light, and he was staring directly at her window. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the focus, bringing his face into sharper relief. He appeared to be in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, with dark hair neatly combed back. His expression was neutral, almost serene. She snapped a photo, the camera's shutter making a soft click in the darkness of her apartment. That's when he smiled. The change was instant and horrifying. His lips pulled back to reveal teeth that seemed too white, too perfect. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret, who had been waiting for this exact moment. He raised one hand and waved at her. A slow, deliberate gesture. Maria jerked back from the camera, her heart hammering against her ribs. How could he see her? Her lights were off. Her curtains had been closed all night. There was no way he could know she was watching him. Unless he'd been waiting for her to look. She didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch with every light in the apartment blazing, curtains drawn tight, checking and rechecking that her door was locked. The photo on the camera haunted her. She transferred it to her laptop and stared at it for hours, zooming in on his face, trying to find something that would make him seem less menacing, more human. She found nothing comforting there. The next morning, exhausted and jittery from too much coffee, Maria almost convinced herself to let it go. She would keep her curtains closed at night. She would forget about the man in the window. It was just some weird coincidence that he'd seemed to wave at the exact moment she photographed him. Then she heard the noises in the hallway. Furniture being moved, heavy footsteps, men's voices coordinating the maneuvering of a couch through a doorway. Maria opened her door a crack and peered out. The apartment next to hers, 8C, had been empty for months. The previous tenant, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, had moved to a nursing home. But now, movers were hauling boxes and furniture into the space. "Careful with that," a voice said. A man's voice, smooth and cultured. "That's an antique." Maria's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. She didn't know how, but she knew it with absolute certainty. She eased her door open a fraction more, trying to see the speaker. He stood in the hallway, directing the movers with calm authority. Tall, thin, dark hair combed back. The man from the 12th floor. Their eyes met. His smile was instant, that same unsettling expression from the photograph. "Hello, neighbor," he said warmly, as if they were old friends. "I'm Adrian Thorne. I suppose we'll be seeing a lot of each other." Maria slammed her door shut and locked it, her breathing ragged. This couldn't be happening. It made no sense. Why would he move here? How had he even known where she lived? A knock on her door made her jump. "I didn't mean to startle you." Adrian's voice came from the other side. Close. Too close. "I just wanted to introduce myself properly. I know it's unusual, but I felt like we had already met in a way. Haven't you felt it too? That connection?" Maria pressed her back against the wall, saying nothing. "I understand if you need time," he continued. His voice was patient, understanding even. "Moving into a new place is always stressful, but I have a feeling we're going to be great friends. I'll see you soon, Maria." She hadn't told him her name. The next few days were a nightmare of hypervigilance. Maria heard every sound Adrian made through the wall, his footsteps as he walked through his apartment, the running of water, the opening and closing of doors. Once she swore she heard him talking, though she never heard another voice respond. Just his low murmur going on and on, as if he were having a one-sided conversation. She stopped using her living room entirely, retreating to her bedroom at the back of the apartment. She kept her curtains drawn at all times. She triple-checked her locks before going to bed. She even considered moving, but her lease wasn't up for 4 more months, and she couldn't afford to break it. At work, she was distracted, jumpy. Pedro noticed and asked if she was okay. She almost told him everything but stopped herself. What would she say? That a man had been watching her, and now he lived next door. That she was terrified of her own neighbor because of a feeling. On the 4th day, she found the note. It had been slipped under her door, a small piece of cream-colored cardstock with elegant handwriting. "Dear Maria, I hope I didn't frighten you the other day. That was never my intention. I wanted to invite you over for tea tomorrow evening around 7 p.m. I make an excellent Earl Grey, and I'd love the chance to get to know my new neighbor properly. I promise I'm not as strange as I might seem. Warmest regards, Adrian." The note should have been innocuous, neighborly even, but something about it made Maria's skin crawl. Maybe it was the assumption that she would come. Maybe it was the phrase, "I'm not as strange as I might seem," which implied he knew exactly how strange he seemed. She didn't respond to the invitation. At 7 p.m. the next evening there was a knock on her door, soft but insistent. "Maria, it's Adrian, I have the tea ready." She sat frozen on her couch, not making a sound. "I saw your car in the parking garage, so I know you're home." His voice was still pleasant, but there was an edge to it now. "It's rude to ignore an invitation, Maria. I went to a lot of trouble." Silence. "Fine." The word came out clipped. "I suppose we'll try again another time. But Maria, you can't avoid me forever. We're neighbors now. We share a wall. I can hear you breathing on the other side." His footsteps retreated. Maria sat in the darkness, her hand pressed over her mouth, trying to muffle her breathing. That night she barely slept. Every creak of the building settling sounded like footsteps. Every distant siren made her think of police cars, of something terrible happening. She kept imagining Adrian standing on the other side of the wall, his ear pressed against it, listening to her fear. When dawn finally came, she made a decision. She was going to the police. Officer Martinez was patient, but clearly skeptical. Maria sat in the sterile police station, showing him the photograph she'd taken, explaining about the watching, the move, the note. "Has he threatened you directly?" Martinez asked, studying the photo. "No, but has he tried to enter your apartment without permission?" "No, he just... Has he followed you or harassed you in any way besides knocking on your door and inviting you to tea?" Maria faltered. "He knows things about me. My name, my schedule. You're neighbors in an apartment building. Your name is probably on your mailbox, and most people have regular schedules." Martinez leaned back in his chair. "Look, Ms. Alvarez, I understand this situation feels uncomfortable, but from what you're telling me, this man hasn't actually committed any crime. Watching from his own window isn't illegal. Moving into an apartment that happened to be available isn't illegal. Being friendly to a neighbor isn't illegal." "But he was watching me for over a month before he moved in," Maria insisted. "He knew where I lived." "Did you ever report the watching?" She shook her head. "Then there's no record of it. And even if there was, again, looking out his own window isn't a crime." Martinez softened slightly. "My advice? Document everything. If he does anything that crosses the line, harassment, trespassing, anything physical, you call us immediately. But right now, there's nothing we can do." Maria left the station feeling more helpless than when she'd arrived. That evening, she came home to find her apartment door ajar. Her heart stopped. She was certain, absolutely certain, that she had locked it. She always locked it, especially now. She pushed it open slowly, flicking on the lights. Nothing seemed disturbed. Her laptop was still on the coffee table. Her TV was still mounted on the wall. Everything appeared exactly as she'd left it, except for the smell. Earl Grey tea, delicate and distinct, permeating her living room. And on her coffee table, next to her laptop, sat a teacup, full, still steaming. Maria ran to Adrian's door and pounded on it with both fists. "Open up! I know you were in my apartment." The door opened immediately, as if he'd been standing right behind it, waiting. "Maria," he said, looking genuinely concerned. "What's wrong? You look upset. You broke into my apartment." She was shaking with anger and fear. "I most certainly did not." His expression was the picture of innocence. "I've been home all evening. Would you like to come in and see? I'll show you. I've just been reading." He gestured to his apartment, where she could see a book lying open on a chair, a reading lamp illuminating it. "There's tea in my apartment, on my table. I know you put it there." "Tea?" He tilted his head, puzzled. "Why would I put tea in your apartment? And more importantly, how? I don't have a key to your door." "You broke in somehow. Did I break your lock? Is there damage to your door?" His questions were infuriatingly reasonable. Maria faltered. She hadn't checked. She'd been so shocked by the tea that she hadn't thought to examine the lock. "I'm calling the police," she said. "Please do," Adrian replied calmly. "I'm sure they'll be very interested in your story about mysterious tea." When Officer Martinez arrived, he examined her door and found no signs of forced entry. The lock was intact. There were no scratches, no damage. He took a statement, photographed the teacup, but his expression told Maria everything she needed to know. He thought she was being paranoid, maybe even irrational. "Could you have made the tea yourself and forgotten?" he asked gently. "Maybe you were distracted." "No, I know I didn't." "And you're certain you locked your door when you left?" "Yes." "Well, sometimes we think we do something but don't actually do it. It happens to everyone." He closed his notepad. "I'll file this report, but Ms. Alvarez, between you and me, you might want to consider if this situation is affecting your mental state. Stress can do strange things." After he left, Maria sat in her apartment, staring at the teacup. Could she have made it? Could she be losing her mind? No. She knew what she knew. That night, she didn't sleep at all. She sat in a chair facing her door with a knife from her kitchen in her lap, watching the shadows under the doorframe for any sign of movement. At 3:17 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You should really get some sleep, Maria. You have work tomorrow." "I'd hate for you to be tired. It's dangerous to make mistakes in an emergency room." Her blood ran cold. She ran to her window and threw open the curtains. Across the street, on the 12th floor, his old apartment window was dark. But she knew somehow that he was watching from somewhere. Maybe from inside his apartment next door. Maybe from somewhere else entirely. She texted back, "What do you want from me?" The reply came instantly. "Just to be close to you, Maria. I've been watching you for so long. You're special. I needed to be near you. Is that so wrong?" "Yes, it's wrong. It's insane." "Is it?" "I think you feel it too, the connection between us. Why else would you have looked for me that night? You wanted to see who was watching. You wanted to know me. Stay away from me. But I can't. We're neighbors now. We're connected. The universe brought us together, Maria. First across the street, now across a wall. Soon there won't be any barriers at all." She blocked the number, but the damage was done. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't spend one more night in this apartment with him on the other side of the wall. She packed a bag with shaking hands and fled to her friend Lucia's apartment across town. She called in sick to work. She needed time to think, time to figure out what to do. But even at Lucia's place, she didn't feel safe. Because at 11:47 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. "Running away won't help, Maria. I'll always find you. I'll always be watching." The next morning, Maria made a decision. She was going to figure out who Adrian Thorne really was. If the police wouldn't help her, she would help herself. She started with a simple Google search. Adrian Thorne pulled up thousands of results, none matching the man next door. She added 12th floor and her city name. Nothing useful. Then she remembered the building across the street. She'd seen him there first. Maybe someone in that building knew who he was, could tell her something useful. The building superintendent was a tired-looking woman named Gloria, who had worked there for 15 years. When Maria described Adrian and mentioned the 12th floor, Gloria's expression shifted from bored to confused. The 12th floor? Apartment 1203? Gloria asked. I don't know the number. Third window from the left. That's 1203. Gloria pulled up her records on a computer. But that apartment's been empty for 7 months. The previous tenant died. Maria felt her stomach drop. Died? Yeah, poor guy. Found him in the apartment. Natural causes, they said, but... Gloria lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, it was weird. He was just standing at the window, stone dead, eyes open, like he'd been looking at something. What was his name? Gloria checked her screen. Marcus Webb. Kept to himself. Paid rent on time. Never any complaints until we found him. Can you tell me what he looked like? Tall guy, thin, dark hair. Kind of intense, you know, always watching people. The description matched Adrian perfectly. But that was impossible. You couldn't be someone who died 7 months ago. Unless... Did he have any family? Anyone who might have moved into my building? Gloria shook her head. No, next of kin. Estate went to the state. The apartment's still tied up in legal stuff. Nobody's been in there since the police cleared the scene. Maria's mind raced. Can I see it? The apartment? What? No, I can't let you in there. Why would you even want to see it? Please, it's important. Something in Maria's desperation must have resonated, because Gloria sighed heavily. 5 minutes. And if anyone asks, you were never in there. Apartment 1203 was exactly as Maria had seen it through her camera, frozen in time. The window where she'd seen Adrian or Marcus, or whoever he was, faced her building directly. But what caught her attention was the wall. Every inch of one wall was covered in photographs of her. Maria walking to her car, Maria entering her building, Maria visible through her apartment window, making coffee, watching TV, reading. Hundreds of photos, taken over months, maybe longer. Some were daytime shots, others at night with the lights on in her apartment. In the center of the collage was the photo she'd taken of him, printed and pinned up, with a caption written in neat handwriting, "The night she finally looked back." Jesus Christ, Gloria whispered behind her. I need to call the police. But Maria was staring at something else, a journal on a small desk near the window. She opened it with trembling hands. The entries went back over a year, page after page of observations about her schedule, her habits, what she wore, who she spoke to. The writing became increasingly obsessive, increasingly delusional. Maria is special. She doesn't know it yet, but we're meant to be together. I can feel her on the other side of the glass. Soon I'll find a way to be closer. Soon there won't be any distance at all. The last entry was dated 7 months ago, the day before Marcus Webb died. I've realized something wonderful. Death isn't an ending, it's a doorway. When I step through, I'll be able to cross any distance. I won't be trapped in this body, in this apartment. I'll be able to be anywhere, to be everywhere, to be with her always. Tomorrow I'll make the crossing, and then nothing will keep us apart. Maria's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the journal. This wasn't possible. Ghosts weren't real. Dead men didn't move into apartments and send text messages and leave tea on coffee tables. But then, how did he know things no living person should know? How had he entered her apartment without a key? How had he been in the window of an apartment that had been empty for 7 months? We need to go, Gloria said urgently. I'm calling the police. This is evidence of stalking, maybe worse. But Maria knew the police couldn't help her, not with this, because Adrian Thorne, or Marcus Webb, or whatever he wanted to call himself, wasn't bound by the rules anymore. He wasn't alive. He was something else, something that could be everywhere and nowhere, something that had fixated on her and wouldn't let go. She ran back to her building, a plan forming in her mind. There was only one way to end this. Maria burst into her apartment building and went straight to the superintendent's office. Mr. Patterson looked up in surprise as she slammed her hand on his desk. "I need to see the lease application for apartment 8C, the new tenant, Adrian Thorne. I can't just show you. Is there even a lease? Is there a tenant, or is that apartment still empty?" Patterson frowned and pulled up his files. His frown deepened. "That's odd. 8C is still marked as vacant. There's no lease, no application. Nobody should be living there. Give me the master key. Now wait just a—" "There's a dead man in that apartment," Maria said with absolute certainty. "Or there's nothing. Either way, we need to look." Something in her tone convinced him. Together, they went to 8C. Patterson knocked first. No answer. He unlocked the door and pushed it open. The apartment was empty, completely, utterly empty. No furniture, no boxes, no book on a chair with a reading lamp, nothing but dust and the faint smell of Earl Grey tea. "But I saw him," Maria whispered. "I talked to him. He answered the door." Patterson was already on his phone, probably calling someone to report her for a mental health check. Maria walked into the empty apartment, her footsteps echoing on the bare floor. She went to the wall she shared with her own apartment and pressed her hand against it. "I know you can hear me," she said to the wall. "Marcus, Adrian, whatever you want to call yourself, I know what you are. I found your apartment, I found your photos, I read your journal." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You've been watching me, fixated on me, for over a year. You died thinking that would bring you closer to me, but it won't work, because I don't want you. I never will. You're not a person anymore. You're just an echo, a sad, obsessive echo." The lights flickered. "You can't touch me. Not really. The tea, the texts, the appearances, it's all just tricks. You're not powerful, you're pathetic, and I'm done being afraid of you." A sound filled the apartment. At first, Maria thought it was the wind, but then she realized it was a voice. His voice. Distorted and distant, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "You looked for me. You wanted to see me. That means something. It means I was curious. That's all. You're nothing to me. Less than nothing. I'll never leave you, Maria. I'll always be watching. Always." "Then watch," Maria said firmly. "Watch me live my life without you. Watch me forget you exist. Watch me be happy, because that's all you can do now. Watch. You're on the other side of the glass, Marcus. And you'll stay there forever." The presence in the room seemed to rage, the temperature dropping further, frost forming on the windows, but Maria stood her ground. "You have no power over me," she said. "Not anymore." And then, as suddenly as it had come, the presence faded, the temperature normalized. The apartment was just an empty apartment again. Patterson stared at her from the doorway. "What the hell just happened?" "Something ended," Maria said. 1 month later. Maria never felt watched again. Oh, sometimes she would catch a flicker of movement in her peripheral vision or hear a footstep in the empty apartment next door. But it was distant now, fading, like a photograph left too long in the sun. She kept her curtains open. She lived her life. She refused to let fear rule her. The police had investigated the apartment across the street after Gloria's call. They'd found the photographs, the journal, the evidence of Marcus Webb's obsession. They'd ruled his death a suicide, a disturbed man who'd taken his own life. The case was closed. Maria knew better, but she also knew that some truths weren't meant to be shared. Some stories were too strange for official reports. She'd learned something important in those terrible days. Fear is a choice. Marcus Webb, or whatever remained of him, had fed on her fear, had grown stronger from it. When she'd finally stood up to him, when she'd refused to be afraid, he'd lost his power. Ghosts, Maria had realized, are only as real as you allow them to be. But still, sometimes late at night, when the city was quiet and the building settled around her, she would see a figure in the window of the 12th floor across the street. Just a shadow, really. Barely there, watching. And she would close her curtains, not out of fear, but out of pity, because Marcus Webb had gotten his wish in a way. He'd found a way to watch her forever, but that was all he could do. Watch. A prisoner of his own obsession, unable to move forward, unable to let go, Maria had moved on, and that, she knew, was the most powerful ending of all. The apartment next to hers was eventually rented to a nice couple with a baby. Maria welcomed them warmly, brought them cookies, helped them feel at home. Life continued, but she never forgot the lesson. Some doors, once opened, reveal things we wish we'd never seen. And some people's attention, even from beyond death itself, is the most dangerous thing of all. The man from the 12th floor was still there, somewhere watching, but Maria Alvarez had stopped looking back. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave your comment, your like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.